identity clinics are typical. It's been a difficult few months for Facebook, and in the last half hour, Martin Lewis has added to the pressure on the social media company by lodging papers with the High Court. He's suing them for defamation over fake ads bearing his face and name. We'll ask if Facebook's legally responsible for that content. And by the time we go on air, there could be a new fifth in line to the throne. Another royal baby is due any minute. Winifred.
Thanks, Sarah. 0 hours contracts are one of the ways that online retailers can undercut traditional bricks and mortar shops on price. Jobs that would once have been staff with set working hours, holiday pay, overtime payments and pensions are now 0 hours, with workers classed as self-employed. Here's a delivery driver who contacted you and yours about it.
We work 6 days a week as a matter of course. Some of the couriers work 7 days a week, which is their choice, but I only work 6. But that is more or less compulsory. You have to provide what they call cover work, so you have to get someone else in to do your round on that day.
Because although you are delivering for a big company, you are in fact self-employed.
Absolutely, and that's a very contentious issue because effectively we're not, because whatever they say do, we have to do. We have to pay our own fuel, we work 6 days a week, probably at Christmas from 7 till 7, and the parcel rate is only 45 pence a parcel.
That's a delivery driver speaking to you and yours in 2015. Official figures published this morning by the Office for National Statistics show that another 100,000 people were employed on 0 hours contracts last year, taking the total from 1.7 million to 1.8 million. Stephen Clark is a senior economist at the Resolution Foundation. It's a not-for-profit research and policy organisation. It says its goal is to improve outcomes for people on low and modest incomes. And he's been looking at this latest research from the Office for National Statistics. Stephen, there's been a lot of speculation that falling unemployment would mean that workers could pick and choose a little bit more, dictate their own terms sometimes, and that the number of these 0 hours contracts would fall. It hasn't happened then.
Well, I think we need to be careful with these statistics today, because actually what they show is that the number of people on them is basically flatlined over the last year or so. The ONS says as much in the release, and another survey that we have of people on 0 hours contracts shows that around 900,000 people are on a 0 hours contract, a number which has been pretty steady for the last year. And I think what we need to be careful with them is because these surveys the ONS does are accurate, but they're only roughly accurate. They can't pinpoint the number of people to the exact number. It's normally in the range of about 100,000 or so.
Is it then that the growth in the number of 0 hours contracts has slowed? And if it has, why?
Yes, it has slowed quite dramatically. There was between kind of late 2011 and 2014-15, we were seeing really strong growth in the number of people on 0 hours contracts, and as I said, it rose up from around 200,000 to about 900,000 over that period, and that was kind of partly a response to the recession. Lots of firms may be choosing to use 0 hour contracts to save costs, but it's slowed recently because the economy has improved and unemployment is now at a 40-year low, employment is at a record high, and it gives workers a few more options, a few more choices in the jobs they choose. It also gives them a bit more bargaining power with their employer. So I think that's one of the main drivers. And then we also have to take into account there's been a bit of bad publicity around these contracts recently, and lots of quite high-profile firms such as McDonald's offering their staff regular hours if they want.
As I said at the start, 0 hours contracts are one of the ways online firms can undercut high street businesses when it comes to their employment costs. The former boss of Sainsbury's, Justin King, was talking about that last week on the Today programme.
This so called estimate what it really is piece rate work. Or more people getting piece rate work since the Victorian era. And that has been to avoid those costs and through business rates or through policy and labour. The government needs to get out of the competitive landscape, try and level it, and that means much more pressure on internet businesses to employ appropriately and a complete reset of how tax is collected through business rates.
Well, that's what Justin King thinks should happen. And Stephen Clark, is anything like that about to happen, do you believe?
Well, I think the government is very concerned about the growth in self-employment, and I think using self-employed labour does allow firms to pay less national insurance, and that is obviously a great competitive advantage for many. And so the government is concerned about that, not least because it means less money for the government in terms of the taxes it collects. I think the thing is that we do remember a budget not that long ago where the Chancellor was going to do something about self-employed taxes, and then rode back within the space of about 24 hours on the issue. And I think that has scarred the government, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any moves on changing the tax on self-employment anytime soon. But ultimately, that probably will have to be looked at again.
Stephen Clark, senior economist wanted to do something about it. So with the help of Dr. Michael Mosley, she did.
Speed. Very good now. Okay. I've whacked up the resistance to 15 and we are going to go for 10 seconds.
Oh, God!
Listeners volunteered to help.
Sue! Are you Kate or Sue? I'm Sue. Sue, I'm Sharon.
How old are you, Kate? I'm just 45.
Sue?
I'm 64.
3, 2, 1, go.
Well, this week, the BBC is launching an obesity season with a lot of different programmes about healthier living. So we thought it would be a good time to ask Shari, how's it going?
It was such a simple idea. My very fit producer Tara suggesting I just take the stairs one day. It's the staircase at the back of the You and Yours office. There's a helpful sign here which says it burns 7 times more calories than taking the lift if you go up the stairs. Let's try it. So we asked for your help, and 2 You and Yours listeners, 45-year-old Kate from Leeds and 65-year-old Sue from Birmingham, joined me to try out the NHS podcast called Couch to 5K. It's a running programme for absolute beginners like us, and it aims to get people like me off the sofa and running for 30 minutes or 5 kilometres in 9 weeks. We first met in Regent's Park in late December, and Kate and Sue told me why they were up for this.
I have just been a bit of a couch potato for many years, and my excuse has always been I just don't have the time. And then coming home and hearing you huffing and puffing up the stairs on the radio programme, it really inspired me. I thought, I don't really do anything that gets me huffing and puffing or in any kind of red-faced situation.
Sue? I was a midwife. I had a very, very active job and I retired 6 years ago. I've got to do something about it. I want to have a fit old age. I don't feel my age mentally, but I feel my age physically.
So fired up with enthusiasm and New Year's zeal, together we went for it.
Are you ready? You can do it.
3, 2, 1, go. So I've just completed run 2 of week 4. It's a really, really cold winter's evening. The streets of Leeds are very, very quiet and dark. Morning, it's the 12th of January, it's Kate here, and I've just completed run 3 of week 4. Much easier today because I'm running in daylight hours.
Hello, I've just completed run 1 of week 5. I honestly can't believe that I'm here. When we first started 5 weeks ago, I thought I'd do one run and that would be it. Well, I came on a peaceful Saturday morning just to do the last run of week 3, and I thought I was going to be by myself. And there are hundreds of people here. Various bits of gear they've scraped together. Someone's just run past me in his boxer shorts.
This is Kate. I've just done run 2 of week 7, so I've just run for 25 minutes. Really had no concept that in 7 weeks' time I'd be able to run that far.
But inevitably, after weeks of us all being little angels, things started to fall apart. We were all hit by horrible flu, just as I am now, and then other things started to get in the way. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 1st of March. Good morning, this is Today.
The headline is this: Britain's wintry blast is going to get worse.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
Country courtesy of Storm Emma. Across northwest England, North Wales,
Forget that then.
plenty of snow showers to come, and it will feel colder.
Back to bed. And it wasn't just the rubbish weather which helped me fall off the wagon. My excuses were, oh, I'm so busy at work, oh, I'm busy, and gosh, look at that yummy muffin, and how can another glass of wine hurt? Kate and Sue both had trouble too.
I haven't actually managed to complete the 9-week programme within 9 weeks. This is purely down to life getting in the way, and that sort of work, children, sickness, holidays, and snow. It was so hard starting this in the winter with the short days, because most of my running I had to do in the dark.
I've sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit, but that was to do with the fact that I've had a terrible flu bug that's lasted over a month. I'm now back on track, sort of, but I've had to drop back down to week 3, but that's...
So I put back on the half stone I'd lost, and because of that I felt a failure and I stopped running. The UK has a very serious obesity problem. Nearly sits at 76%. Funding for Rotherham's specialist weight management services was cut last year, but its director, Dr. Matt Capehorn, still wants to help people. At the beginning of my plan to increase my fitness, I stood on a special scale in his office. It measures not just my weight, but the proportion of fat, muscle, water and bone in my body. Last week, I went back.
What was the verdict?
Oh my God! You've got the original one.
Your fat percentage has gone down.
Really?
Which is fantastic. The fat mass, so you previously had 30.6 kilos of your weight made up of fat. And now you've only got 28.45 kilos of fat making up your weight. So even though your weight has gone up, your fat has gone down, so you're not fat.
But I'm really shocked.
Yeah, because your fat-free mass has gone up from 49.75 up to 51.7 kilos.
So the exercise is absolutely crucial.
It's absolutely crucial, although on the scales it's shown that you're actually heavier, you're much fitter and healthier now because your fat has gone down and your muscle has gone up. So metabolically, you're much healthier and further away from heart disease and diabetes and the things that we worry about as a doctor.
I'm back running and I've cut out the wine and the muffins, but actually, what's made the difference for me is the stairs. Remember staircase A at the back of the you and yours office?
Feeling it now. 2. Only one more floor to go.
Well, sure enough, I've done the stairs every single time I've come into work. It's made a huge impact. The only one to actually finish the 9th week of the Couch to 5K running plan was Sue, and she did it in style on a very special birthday.
Well, I've just completed Couch to 5K, which is fairly incredible really, because I'm on a ship that has just sailed up the Norwegian coast, which just goes to prove you can run anywhere. But I did it. I'm 65. I ran for 30 minutes non-stop.
That was one of our listeners, Sue, an exercise hero. And Shari's also one of our heroes. And not only is she exercising, but she's working with that really bad cold. Cyber criminals have manufacturing companies in their sights now. Manufacturing is the 3rd most likely commercial sector to have systems hacked. That's after healthcare and financial services. Manufacturers hold a lot of valuable information about what they make and about their customers. But according to research from the Manufacturers Organisation, EEF, although more than half of all companies have had some kind of a security breach, many of them are ill-prepared to protect themselves. And 1 in 10 has no online security systems in place at all. Mike Naylor knows firsthand about the problems caused by hacking. He runs Durham Foundry based in Sheffield.
We've been melting iron on this site since about 1873, and we supply a whole range of cast iron products to a whole range of end users. We've only really had one cyber threat. We suddenly lost our email. We couldn't receive them, we couldn't send them. We didn't really understand what was happening. We thought initially it was to do with our broadband provider. So we sent a ticket into our server's based in America, and a day or so later we got a response to say that they had to shut our email account down because it had been hacked. It was being used to send out mass numbers of spam emails. I hadn't realised how fundamental email is to a modern business. We lost enquiries, they didn't turn up. I know we lost business from it, from a couple of customers who thought we'd shut down, we were on holiday possibly, and they went somewhere else. So it did have a financial effect. We think we're fairly savvy around digital technology. We understand about keeping systems up to date, having antivirus software up to date. The one thing we hadn't done was consider strong passwords on accounts. And it was a simple password we used, which was hacked fairly easily. So we just felt a bit silly at the end of it.
That's Mike Naylor. Well, Andy Tusher is the director of the National Defence Industries. They're part of the Manufacturers Organisation, the EEF, that published today's report. Andy, how did you set about finding out then how well protected manufacturers are against cyber attack?
Very simply by actually asking a sample of manufacturers a series of questions. We did the research in partnership with AIG and engaged with RUSI, which is the Royal United Services Institute, and we actually asked the questions.
spoke to had had a security breach, but many of them weren't doing anything to protect themselves. Why not?
I think it is fear on lack of understanding of what they can do. There are very, very simple steps that you can do. And, you know, it's important, the message out there now is that you have to do it, you know, and Cyber Essentials is a government-backed scheme that sets the very bare minimum to do that. But as Mike said with Durham Foundry, email is just one aspect of it. There's a whole range of ways of hackers now actually getting in, and it's not just losing orders, it's actually taking control of your systems, of your processes, and in some instances to actually catastrophic effects.
How are the criminals making money from hacking manufacturers in particular?
A number of ways. IP theft. UK manufacturers account for about 70% of research and development within the UK, and, you know, a huge contributor to the economy. So it's actually by stealing that IP, that intellectual property, or it's actually by holding on to ransom. For example, if you're a food producer producing food for Morrison's, Texas, or Tesco's, and you're hacked, they can hold you to ransom, and your processes and companies pay, because it's lack of reputation, and that loss of reputation actually can be catastrophic to a business should they say and declare that they've actually had that done to them.
Andy Touche, thank you for that. There's a charity that you've probably never heard of that has more than £480 million in the bank, but has never spent a penny on good causes. It's called the National Fund, and it was set up in 1928 to pay off the UK's national debt. The terms of the fund state that it has to pay the whole debt off, not part of it. The national debt currently stands at almost 1.8 trillion. That's nearly 4,000 times more than there is in this charity fund. And the trustees want to close the fund and say they would like to distribute the £480 million that they're holding. The trustees approached the Charity Commission for permission to do that 9 years ago now, but they're still waiting. David Ainsworth, the editor of Civil Society magazine, has been following this story. Civil Society is a trade publication for the charity sector, and I asked him, what's the hold-up? Why hasn't this fund been able to close?
In 2011, the Charity Commission referred this issue to the Attorney General's office, asking them to make a ruling and to go to the courts to get a judgment that would allow the fund to close and the money to be distributed. It went into the Attorney General's office at that point. In 2012, the Attorney General's office said it was assessing a legally complicated issue and it would issue a judgment in due course. When we asked them again in 2018, they gave a very similar answer, suggesting that not a lot of progress is being made.
If this charity was set up 90 years ago, but hasn't paid anything towards its original objective of paying off the national debt, has it been doing all that time?
Essentially, it's been acquiring money. It's got its cash invested in the stock market, and it's been increasing its funds at a little bit of the growth of GDP each year, so that it's inching closer very slowly to being able to pay off the national debt. If we do some back-of-the-envelope calculations, it suggests that maybe if we wait for another 400 years, it might get there.
But in the meantime then, the people who run this charity and who make investments on its behalf, have they been earning money?
Yeah, so it seems as if it's quite normal for the people who act as the sole corporate trustee for the charity and the people who manage the money on its behalf to get somewhere in the region of 0.5% of the fund's assets each year. And so they're earning, in relative terms, a fairly small commission for managing this money. But obviously when we're talking about £475 million, that adds up.
Is it strictly legal for a charity to operate for so very long, 90 years, without paying anything to beneficiaries, but only paying out a return to its trustees and asset managers?
It seems to be strictly legal. This is a little bit of a loophole. When it was set up in 1928, the idea of paying off the national debt was viewed as a charitable activity, and so for a long time it was able to sort of plough along. So it hasn't done anything against the law, but I think if we were to look at establishing such a charity nowadays, we might ask some tough questions before letting them set up in this manner.
Well, for a lot of people it might come as a surprise to learn that a charity can invest in the stock market like that. Is it common?
That actually is very common, and generally speaking we would see nothing wrong with it. The money goes into the stock market, it can expect to produce a return of about 8% a year, less inflation and fees. It probably makes about 4% more than it needs in order to remain the the same size, and there's a lot of very big charities. That's what they do. Each year they give away about 4% of their income in grants to good causes all over the country, and some of them are doing extremely valuable good work with that.
We asked the Charity Commission about this fund, and they said the public rightly expect charitable assets to go to good causes, and any situation where charity funds appear to be being held indefinitely without being used to further charitable purposes is problematic. The matter of the National Fund has therefore been of serious concern to the Commission. Given the size of the national debt, the current value of the charity's assets, we considered it unlikely that the fund's charitable purposes could be achieved, and are committed to finding a constructive way forward. The matter is now with the Attorney General to take the next steps to resolve this issue, and the Attorney General's office told us they're dealing with it and they'll let us know in due course. Is that fair enough, do you think?
I think the Charity Commission's position is probably fair enough. The Commission looked at this fund and they took all the available steps. The Commission is extremely limited in resources. It's struggling very much to deal with its caseload at the moment. So they've passed it on to the Attorney General's office. They're the proper authorities. But perhaps the Attorney General's office, on the other hand, sees this as a relatively low priority. This might have slid down to the bottom of someone's case list, and it hasn't made any progress on it for 6 years.
The size of the fund that is being held, £475 million. It sounds like a lot, but in context, is it a big amount? Is it an amount for the Attorney General to worry about?
Well, I suppose if the Attorney General is used to worrying about the figures, the size of national budget for the government, which are in the billions and tens of billions, then 475 million is relatively small beer, really. But if we're talking about charities, this is very big indeed. This is one of the 20 or 30 richest charities in the United Kingdom, sitting there without any money being spent on anything charitable. And I would hope that the Attorney General would view this as a matter of some urgency.
David Ainsworth from the magazine Civil Society speaking to me earlier this morning. Well, the current trustee of the fund is a company called Zedra Fiduciary Services. Now, we asked them to come on. They sent us a statement instead. They say they took over the role of liaising with the Charity Commission last year after the acquisition of the company that ran the trust before them. The idea now is to allow for the trust to become grant-making and fulfil a greater public benefit. They say they're speaking to the Charity Commission and to the Attorney General's office, and they say that the most likely outcome will be that the fund will be liquidated and payment made to the National Debt Commissioners, although the time frame for all that isn't known. That's it for today. Tomorrow it's our weekly phone-in, Call You and Yours, and we're asking how your life has been changed by other people's drinking. Today, the government's announced new support for the children of alcoholics. An estimated 200,000 children in England alone live with alcohol-dependent parents. How has drinking by your parents, partners, siblings, even a close friend affected your life and your relationships? Email us now, please, you and yours, at bbc.co.uk. Leave us your number so that we can call you back. And join me tomorrow at 12:15. Just before we go, a couple of your emails about the books you're hazing but ploughing on with anyway. Caroline says, just ploughed my way through about 4 chapters of Olive Kitteridge. Keep thinking, should persevere as it's so well reviewed. Am I missing something? If I'm not enjoying it after another 3 chapters, I am going to bin it. Now, this one from Carl. Tried a book, A Little Life. He says it took away more than a little of his life. Only read it because it was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize. I won't do that again.
This is BBC Radio 4. To the weather and a sense of back to reality, I think today is, Darren Bent.
Yes, it is. It feels very different out there at the moment. Cooler and fresher air has arrived across the UK, and that's the way it's going to stay through the rest of this week. You can forget about that unusually warm weather that we had last week. That's not going to return this week at all, and probably even into next week either. So the best temperature we're going to manage today could be around 16, 17 degrees across southeastern parts of England. Otherwise, I think 13 to 15 is going to be more typical across the UK, and that's where the numbers should be at this time of the year. So we're back to normal. 11 degrees, I think, across western Scotland, where we're seeing some outbreaks of rain and a few showers coming into eastern Scotland. For many eastern parts of England, though, the rest of the day should be dry and bright. A little bit of sunshine coming through. Head further west across England and into Wales. Increasing amounts of cloud today. There may be a few pockets of light rain or drizzle. We've seen some of that already in Northern Ireland. That should be moving away. We may end the day with some late sunshine. Westerly winds, though, continuing to blow this evening and overnight, pushing the rain clear of mainland Scotland and pushing some pockets of rain and drizzle southwards and eastwards into England and Wales, together with much more cloud. Northern half of the UK should see clearer skies returning, and temperatures like last night down to around 5 to 7 degrees. For the southern half of the UK, with much more cloud and the potential for a little bit more rain and drizzle, temperatures should be much higher at around 10 or 11 degrees. But I think